As crowds loyal to Donald Trump broke into the U.S. House and Senate trying to subvert the legitimate will of the electorate. They picked Joe Biden as this country's 46th president. 6 people died as a result, and more than 140 officers were injured. One of the dead, writer Ashley Babbitt, a native Lakeside, California, you just saw her, shot in the shoulder by police while trying to climb through a broken window in the Speaker's lobby, trying to gain access to the House chamber. To date, about 900 people have been charged with taking part. 470 have made guilty pleas, according to the Department of Justice. One of them, Tommy Frederick Allen of Rockland, just sentenced to 21 months behind bars for his role, stealing Senate documents and a flag and waving it next to the self-proclaimed QAnon shaman. President Biden set to give 12 people the country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Citizens Medal, for their exemplary deeds for service for their country in relation to that day, among them election workers who refused to be pressured into changing votes. Congressman John Garamendi with me now live to share his recollections of that day and what has happened since to address the insurrection. Congressman, good morning to you.
It's good to be with you. It was a horrible day. It was absolutely horrible, frightening in many, many ways. That crowd was seriously out to get blood, and the blood they wanted were members of Congress, obviously Nancy Pelosi being targeted, and the Vice President of the United States. Hank Pence was the chant that was going on, and they were serious about it. It was frightening. It was horrible, and it will probably be among one of the worst days that our democracy has ever had. Pales in comparison, perhaps in some way, to the Civil War. But the Civil War did not ever attack the Capitol. In fact, Lincoln continued to build this citadel of democracy throughout the Civil War. So, and today was a day of remembering. 6 police officers died as a result of that. 143 were seriously injured in one way or another. So for the police, we remember them today on the steps of the Capitol for their courage, for what they did to protect us and to protect our democracy. One of the things that I found very, very upsetting about this morning when we did that commemorance was not one Republican showed up to honor the police that literally put their lives at stake to save our democracy.
Congressman, I have to ask you about the Republican Party, the party opposing yours right now. 2 years ago, your colleagues were being told to put on gas masks. They were huddling on the floor of the House under the direction of those officers that you just mentioned. And oddly enough, there's a different kind of turmoil happening in the House this week on this very day with the struggle over fellow Californian Kevin McCarthy's bid for Speaker, a bid that has now failed in 12 rounds of voting. Circumstances being different, the elected Speaker might have been leading the remembrances today and being focused on that. What is your sense of what's going on with this ongoing round of voting and voting?
Well, it's really a continuation of Trump and Trumpism. It fractured the Republican Party and literally brought to the House of Representatives election deniers. Of the current members of the Republican Conference, well over 120 of them voted to not certify the election. Now, the 20 that were holding out, not supporting McCarthy, those were the most radical of those 140-some members of the Republican Conference that refused to certify the election 2 years ago on the 6th of January, 2021. So now we're facing that. Probably later today or maybe even tomorrow, McCarthy is likely to get his votes. There were 14 that that moved away and decided to vote for McCarthy, still short. But nonetheless, this is not going to disappear. This chaos will not disappear with the election of McCarthy or any other speaker. That is a very badly fractured caucus or conference, as they call themselves, and that's going to carry on. The real heavy lifting comes in the days ahead. It could be an emergency. We've got these serious floods in the West. That could call upon California or upon Congress to provide emergency aid to deal with that.